Once a distant 13th in line to the British throne, Iris Mountbatten was born into tradition, but she lived as if she owed it nothing. With a crown far out of reach and expectations weighing heavy, she tore through the rulebook with a wicked smile and a flair for scandal. The black sheep of the royal family, she called herself, and she wasn't wrong. Her first rebellion? Love. She married a Catholic, and the monarchy's quiet wrath was swift. Her name struck from the line of succession, erased like an inconvenient footnote. But Iris didn't flinch. She turned her back on the stiff collars of Buckingham and set sail for America, chasing freedom across the Atlantic. It wasn't a fairy tale. She was deported for bouncing a cheque. A princess no longer, just a woman with bad credit and better stories to tell. Still, she found her way back. But high society, with its cold champagne and colder smiles, slammed its doors. So Iris did what Iris always did. She lived on her terms. She married a jazz musician, trading tiaras for trumpet solos and palace walls for smoky clubs. In a world obsessed with propriety, she chose passion, and in doing so, she became something far rarer than a royal, her own person. Before we get started, if you want to support the channel and find all my links in one place, just scan the QR code on screen. It'll take you to Patreon, my social media, and even my books. Everything's there. Now don't worry if you miss the code now, I'll show it again at the end of the video, so thanks for your support. Now, let's get into this week's story. She moved through the jazz scene like a woman reborn, graceful, daring, and electric. Iris Mountbatten didn't just admire the legends of the age, she lived among them. Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Count Basie were distant stars to her, but close companions, fellow outsiders in their own ways. Gossip followed, of course, it always did. Whispers spread that she had a particular taste for black men, scandalising polite society on both sides of the Atlantic. But by then, Iris had long stopped caring what the court whispered behind gloved hands. Despite being Queen Victoria's great-granddaughter and spending her childhood in the gilded halls of Kensington Palace, Iris Mountbatten's story unravelled not in a royal court, but on the restless streets of New York and Los Angeles. To survive, she became a chameleon, a film publicist one day and a shop girl the next. She danced, she modelled, she even briefly hosted television. Glamorous, yes, but beneath it all, there was a sense of drift. She had the looks, the charm, and the sparkle, but what she didn't have, at least not for long, was direction. A problem child, one family friend recalled, not unkindly, but how could she have turned out any other way? Raised more by nannies than by her parents, she was paraded into the drawing room at tea time, inspected like a doll, and then whisked away. Love was distant, and affection rationed. By the time she hit her teens, she was, well, according to the same friend, gone to the dogs and completely hopeless. Yet there was something Iris longed for, something the royals could never give her, a real connection. She wanted to live among ordinary people, to dance in smoky rooms and laugh without constraint. She dreamed of being royal and real at the same time, but to the House of Windsor, such a thing was unthinkable. And so she was cast out, neither entirely of their world nor fully part of any other, just Iris, imperfect and free. Iris Mountbatten came from blue blood, but the warmth that should have wrapped around a child of privilege never quite touched her. Her father, once Prince Alexander of Battenberg, had been forced to trade his princely German title for the more modest Marquess of Carisbrooke during the First World War, when all things German became suspect. But a name change did little to change his nature. Described by those who knew him as irritating and nervous, Alexander was a man more at ease in the company of men, most of all a reckless socialite named Simon Fleet, with whom he was said to be utterly infatuated. Her mother, Irene Denison, daughter of the Earl of Loughborough, was, if anything, colder. Despite Iris being her only child, Irene kept her at arm's length, emotionally and physically. The girl was raised mainly by nannies, inspected like a specimen at tea time, and then sent away again. Iris was born into a palace, but she grew up in emotional exile. And yet, for a time, she still moved within the royal inner circle. At just 14, she stood beside royalty as a bridesmaid to Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark at her wedding to Prince George, Duke of Kent. 3 years later, she was one of 6 young women chosen to carry the train of Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Mother of the 1937 coronation. The cameras loved her, society pages praised her. She was one of the most photographed debutantes of her day, glamorous, poised, and full of promise. But behind the perfect smile was a girl desperately seeking the love she'd never found at home. In 1941, she thought she'd found it. At 21, Iris married Hamilton Keyes O'Malley, an Irish Guards officer. Perhaps she hoped marriage would offer the belonging she craved. Instead, it became the darkest chapter of her life. O'Malley was Roman Catholic, and under the harsh terms of the 1772 Royal Marriages Act, this alone was enough to see Iris stripped from the line of succession. It should have been a crisis, but she met it with gallows humour. A plague would have had to hit the effing palace before I'd become queen, she later quipped. But there was no humour to be found in the marriage itself. What followed was cruelty behind closed doors, abuse, silence and fear. It was a total disaster, a nightmare, she would say later, her voice still edged with the pain of the memory. I could never tell a divorce court all the horrible, ugly things that happened, things I still refuse to tell. It wasn't just a failed marriage, it was a failed marriage. It was another betrayal, another place where she'd looked for love and found only harm. For Iris, the dream of home and family seemed to slip further away with every step. In a world where appearances meant everything, Iris Mountbatten did the unthinkable. She let the truth come out. Instead of quietly orchestrating her escape from a violent marriage through the usual genteel channels, Iris let her husband be the one to file for divorce. It was a quiet act of rebellion, but in royal circles, it detonated like a bomb. Women of her class were expected to maintain their dignity, allowing their husbands to bear the scandal. Iris refused, and for that, she paid dearly. The fallout was swift and cruel. The headlines screamed louder than ever, and her decision to renounce her place in the line of succession, an act of defiance wrapped in black comedy, only added fuel to the fire. High society was always happy to embrace her beauty, but never her defiance shut its doors. Even her blood turned cold. She was banned from attending her grandmother, Princess Beatrice's funeral, a final and cutting snub from a family that had never truly embraced her. So Iris did what she'd always done, and the walls closed in. She ran, this time to America. But freedom didn't greet her at the docks. Unfamiliar with how American banking worked, she wrote a check that bounced, and for that small mistake she was arrested. The tabloids licked their lips. The royal black sheep had landed and fallen hard. Deported and disgraced, she could have vanished, but Iris was nothing, not relentless. She clawed her way back into the US as a tourist, leaving behind the last tattered scraps of her royal image. Titles were no good here, so she worked, and really worked. Whatever job came her way, she took it. She modelled, she acted, and she charmed her way into television, hosting a children's show called Versatile Varieties, Junior Edition, and grinning her way through ads for Pond's Cream and Warren Mint cocktail gum. And for a time it seemed she'd outrun the shadow of the palace, and America, with all its chaos and opportunity, seemed to welcome her in a way Britain never had. She even found love again, or thought she did. Her second husband, jazz guitarist Mike Bryan, had played with Benny Goodman's band. The music, the smoky clubs, the sense of belonging in the world of rhythm and rebellion, this was the life she craved, but the marriage unravelled in months. Still, the jazz world embraced her in a way the monarchy never could. She wasn't just a curiosity, she was part of the scene. The legends knew her by name. At his final concert, Duke Ellington dedicated a song to her, Iris Mountbatten, that satin doll. It was a moment of recognition, not for a bloodline, but for a spirit. She'd been cast out by royalty, but in the glow of a stage spotlight she found a different kind of crown, one that she earned. Time, unkind as ever, began to dull the sparkle that once made Iris Mountbatten a darling of society pages. The cheeky charm and beauty that lit up ballroom after ballroom faded earlier than anyone expected, and with it perhaps her belief that the world might yet be kind to her. She began to drink, and not just occasionally. It became a companion, a shield, and maybe even a rebellion in a glass. The gossip never let up. Reporters hounded her with insinuations, sleazy tales of affairs with jazz musicians, and one day, drunk and raw-nerved, she snapped, "Sex with jazz players, these are my buddies, buddies, buddies," she spat to a journalist. "There are always these insinuations that I keep hopping in and out of bed with them. Why do people think? Because I love them. It has to mean sex." It didn't matter. The snide comments kept coming. One columnist couldn't resist twisting the knife and said, "It's not like quite the home life of our own dear Queen." Eventually, Iris fled again, this time to Toronto. There, she tried to begin anew with William Kemp, an actor and announcer. For a moment, it seemed like life would settle, but it didn't. The pattern repeated. Love, hope, unravelling, and by now she'd racked up 3 failed marriages and a lifetime of royal disapproval. When Prince Charles married Lady Diana in 1981, Iris waited quietly, half hopeful, for an invitation that never came. It was a final public reminder of her status. The courtiers had not forgotten and certainly not forgiven, and even when the Queen Mother visited Canada and Iris gently suggested they meet, she was met with silence. A wall, tall and cold. The black sheep wasn't just scandalous anymore, she was forgotten. Her final years were modest, lonely, and soaked in the company of others who knew what it meant to nurse a drink and a fading dream. Low on money and little more than a royal footnote, Iris died at 62 from a brain tumour, quietly away from the spotlight that had once loved her. Her ashes were returned to England, to the Isle of Wight, and interred in the Battenberg Chapel at St Mildred's Church in Whippingham. There were no flowers from Buckingham, no royal guard in mourning, no wreath laid in public remembrance. The royal family didn't even send a single representative. Yet she was home at last, but only in death. If you missed the opportunity at the start of this video, then here's your second chance. If you'd like to support the channel and find all my links, just scan the QR code on screen. It'll take you to Patreon, social media, and even my books. Every bit of support helps me keep making videos like this. Even a thumbs up or a comment on the video increases its chances of being seen by more people. And I really appreciate you being here, so thanks for watching.